Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Uzoma Wachuku, and today we are going to be starting a new series on algorithms using Python. Okay, so if you don't know what Python is or you've never heard of Python, please go back to the channel. We have an entire playlist dedicated to Python programming and its fundamentals. So when you're done watching that, come back here and let's kick off. So first of all, what is an algorithm? In terms of computer programming, an algorithm is a set of well-defined instructions used to solve a particular problem. And it takes a set of inputs and produces the desired output. So throughout this series, we are going to be looking at different types of algorithms that we have and how we can solve problems that come in those formats. The first algorithm we're going to be looking at is what we call exhaustive enumeration. Now, the principle of this method is to evaluate all combinations of the discrete variables. So simply, we enumerate all possibilities until we get to the right answer or exhaust the space of possibilities. And we're going to look at a question here that will involve the use of exhaustive enumeration. So we have a question in Python that says that we should find the root of a perfect cube. Now this is a very interesting question. We are asked to find the root of a perfect cube. So we're going to follow an algorithm to solving this process. So I'm going to show you all the steps we need to take to solve this. And the first step is that we're going to input the desired integer. We're going to set the value of a guess to 0. We would run a loop that will find the cube of all values from 0 and break when the cube of guess is greater than the value of that integer. Then we check if the cube of guess is equals to the initial integer. Now, I would also like to point out that exhaustive enumeration is also called guess and check. So you make a guess, you check if the value is correct, and if it is, you return true. If it's not, you return false. So this question, find the root of a perfect cube. So first of all, we create a variable, okay, call it num, and we'll ask the user for an input and make the input an integer. So we'll ask for an input and we say enter an integer. Okay, so this time we're working with integers, we don't want float. Then we create a guess and set guess to 0. Now the next step is that we are going to run a loop that will find the cube of all the values from 0 and breaks when the cube of guess is greater than the initial integer. So I will use a while loop, and even we have many types of loops, while and for, but in my previous videos I've explained why we use one over the other. So I will say while guess raised to power 3 is less than the absolute value of the number, meaning if the person puts in a negative number, the absolute value of that number is going to be positive. If the person puts in a positive number, the absolute is still positive. So now we will say that guess will be equals to guess plus 1. So we want to keep on increasing it, while the value of guess after doing it, while it is less than the absolute value of our initial integer, which we have specified to num, okay, the loop will keep on running. Once it's no longer less than, the loop breaks. Then next, we check if the cube of our guess is equals to the initial integer. So I will say that if guess raised to power 3 is not equals to the absolute value of num, okay, then we would print using a formatted string. We'll say num is not a perfect cube. Okay. Else, now I want to check if the value is a -1. So we say that if num is less than 0, meaning is it negative, then whatever the value of guess would be, we will make it equals to negative guess. All right. Then we print that in our formatted string again, that the cube root of num is our guess. Okay, so let's try this out and see if it works. So let's run it. Now it asks us for an integer. All right, now if I put in, let me first of all put in an integer that's not a perfect cube, something like 10, and you see that it tells me that 10 is not a perfect cube. Now if I run it again, that's for an integer. Let me put a perfect cube 9. So you see it says that 9 is not a perfect cube as well. But if I run it again, sorry, 9 is not a perfect cube, 9 is a square of 3, and I put 8, you see it should tell me that the cube root of 8 is 2. Okay, so it simply evaluates all the values of guess. It starts guess at 0, it checks 0 squared cube of the cube of 0, okay, is it less than the absolute value of num, and it keeps on doing this until it gets a value. So 2 raised to power 3 is 8, and 8 is not less than 8 because 8 is equals to 8. Okay, so the while loop breaks out. Then it now checks if guess, okay, which is now 2 raised to power 3 is not equals to the absolute value, but in this case 2 raised to power 3 is equals to 8. Okay, so this does not run, rather this would run. The next thing it will check is the number we put a -1. So let us check and use a negative value, so you will see what that other half is doing. So if I say -8, you see that it tells me that the cube root of -8 is -2, because first of all converts the negative to positive here, runs the check, then checks if it was negative. Then if it was negative, it converts the value of guess back to a negative, then tells us that the cube root of num is guess. Thank you very much for watching this, and we're going to continue with this our series, and I hope that you had a nice time. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and see you next time.